A doctor who identified Colorado's first COVID-19 outbreak says there have been two critical moments, then and now. He's from deep red El Paso County, yet Colorado seems stuck on making masks political. Look at the map. Mask mandates, counties that voted blue. Also the counties that are more populous. Two more conservative-led areas, though, close to the metro, opted out of health guidance to require masks. We're talking back to school in Colorado's largest district. The plan is out, right down to exactly who goes home when someone gets sick. And because not everything is terrible, this. Just look at this. Next. Think of today as that moment in so many science fiction movies when the nerd comes forward. The nerd comes forward with a warning about some impending doom, imploring people to listen, to take the clear way out. But no one listens. They laugh, they mock, they ridicule. The movie continues, and it turns out that the nerd was right all along. One of the doctors who helped identify Colorado's first COVID-19 outbreak today compared himself to that nerd, trying to issue a warning to all of our state. Let's take a look at what's happening in this movie that we are currently living right now. Colorado's hospitalizations for COVID-positive patients went up quite a bit today, 252. Now, that's still much lower than what we saw in April. It is the highest count that we've seen in more than a month. Now let's look at El Paso County. Cases there have been going up as well. It's clear that Colorado Springs is not trending in the right direction. Enter the nerd. Enter the expert, Dr. Leon Kelly. He's the county coroner down there in El Paso County. Today he went in front of his county commissioners saying this is that key moment in the movie. Are people going to listen? Or are they going to laugh and ridicule his warning?
This is that moment right now where the nerdy guy is showing up to tell you where we are, to give you the hard, cold facts. And even though sometimes it's difficult to accept for some of us, it doesn't make it any less real.
What is the way out? Dr. Kelly says it's masks. It's masks on as many people as possible right now. He said that now is the time when Colorado must decide if it is going to alter its behavior or whether it's going to look at a second series of shutdowns, as we are seeing in other states. Well, did they listen? Did they laugh? Did they ridicule? El Paso County commissioners did not give their doctor a wedgie and throw him out of the room, but they also did not move forward on any kind of a mask requirement today. Let's look at where we are on testing. Colorado processed more than 7,300 tests yesterday. We've been averaging more than 6,000 every day this month. Thankfully, our positivity rate continues to stay under that 5% threshold that public health experts watch so closely. New cases. Again, this is more of an imprecise measure because some of these could be really mild, but we added 444 new confirmed cases today, brings our 7-day moving average up to 431 per day. That average has been slowly trending upward since the back half of June. Jefferson County's mask mandate went into effect an hour ago, and if you're thinking, well, I didn't know that was happening. No, not many people did. This was an emergency order that came out at 3 o'clock and went into effect at 5 o'clock today. The health department says they have seen a large increase in COVID-19 cases since the middle of last month. They're deciding to act quickly with this county-wide public mask order. It lasts for 1 week while they evaluate whether to extend it. Want to give you a live look right now at a special city council meeting that is going on in Glendale. Glendale, of course, is that small city within Denver. The Strip now teasing its citizens with dancing out of Tri-County's mask mandate. Steve Stager explains why.
In a city known for its love of taking things off, you should almost expect a mandate to cover up won't fly.
We needed to be focusing on what was good for our individual population and our citizenry.
Linda Cassidy is Glendale's city manager. She is supportive of city council opting out of a mask order issued by the Tri-County Health Department.
We're a very small population. We're predominantly single. We're predominantly young, so our average age is 27. We don't have a lot of the same issues in terms of this disease.
Glendale is a small sliver surrounded on all sides by Denver, where there already is a mask mandate. You might think a decision like this would create confusion. Cassidy argues following the order would only be a bigger problem.
It is very confusing for each community to be under a different set of rules.
She points to this paragraph in the Tri-County Health Order requiring people eating at a restaurant to stay 6 feet apart from people who aren't part of their household, an issue she says for her town of predominantly single people who want to eat with other people, and different than the rules just feet away.
So you can go to a restaurant across the street in Denver as a party of 8 that's not part of the same household, but you can't cross the street into Glendale and do that?
Through a spokesman today, Denver Mayor Michael Hancock said he's encouraging Glendale to follow the order, saying the more cities nearby that require masks, the better the chances of keeping the economy open. Glendale's leaders, though, say they are leaving it up to businesses and people.
The fact that Tri-County gave cities the ability to opt out is a signal to cities, this is what we would like you to do, but you need to do what's going to be best for your community.
Now, Tri-County told me late this afternoon they're looking at amending part of that order, especially the part about restaurants and who can eat there. People who want a mask mandate in Glendale, they are already threatening a recall, and it would not be too difficult to do that, or at least to get one going, because a total of 13 people voted for the council members back in April. A total of 12 people voted for the mayor there. They were both uncontested races in that city. The city charter requires 25% of votes cast for each position. You have to gather that many signatures, Kyle. And this is math that I actually could do. That would be about 3 signatures for each of those positions.
12 people voted for the mayor of Glendale. That's like a principality. Like, you should just like declare your lawn in Centennial to be like the Republic of Steve, you know?
Well, it's interesting. So they are their own city, and in their own city, they can have a polling place election or a mail-in election. And they said they picked a polling place election back in January, didn't really have time to change it. Then the stay-at-home order came around. Plus, everything was uncontested, so there really just wasn't a whole ton of turnout for that race. But it is relatively tight and relatively easy for people if they wanted to try something.
I can think of one polling place in Glendale. All right, thank you, Steve. Democratic Governor Jared Polis was asked today about something that we discussed here yesterday, about how one consequence of politicians like him deciding not to mandate masks is that it falls on everyday Coloradans to be the bad guy, to have those confrontations, to defend those rules face to face. That because the governor does not want the heat from this, it instead falls on grocery store workers and hairstylists and receptionists. The governor was asked about that.
We made it very clear under an emergency order that any business has the right to deny entry to people that are not wearing masks. But I completely understand that that's difficult to enforce. I sympathize. We want to help. We want to work on whatever executive actions we can to really prevent that kind of unsafe and dangerous activity, to protect those who work in retail and public environments.
Today, the Douglas County Republican Party is taking another crack at apologizing for their racist social media post that compared the governor's voluntary mask suggestions to the death of George Floyd. Yesterday here, I suggested that there ain't no apology like a if someone was offended apology, because an if someone was offended apology doesn't count. Perhaps the Douglas County Republican Party realized that, and they did better today. I would bet that you've seen this image. It's been circulated pretty widely now. It's a political cartoon of sorts that shows a police officer standing on someone's neck using a baton to hold a mask over their face. The version posted by Douglas County Republicans included the governor's name on the officer's boot and the caption, "We can't breathe." Sometime yesterday afternoon, the apology to anyone who was offended was shared to the Facebook page by the GOP chairman Stephen Allen, and the post was deleted. It was replaced this morning by a new apology that apologizes for the post itself, not just for possibly offending somebody. Tri-County Health, which currently, but not for long, represents Douglas County, spoke out about this issue today, saying, quote, "We're sickened by the political cartoon that was recently placed on the Douglas County GOP's Facebook page that likens a face mask mandate to the murder of George Floyd." Health Department went on, "Not only does this episode further polarize public discourse over responses to the worst pandemic we've faced in this country in over a century, but it also embodies exactly the kind of racial insensitivity that contributes to the burden of systemic racism in our country." If you're confused about where masks are mandated and where they are not, just consider how those counties voted in the last presidential election. State Health Department has that nifty map on the left that's constantly updating, shows you where masks are required in public. If you just look up the election map from 2016 to see who voted Democratic, they're pretty much identical at this point. Overlaps largely, I should say, with Colorado's most populous counties, but not exactly. All right, here's some math for you. 93,000, that is the number of students in Denver public schools, state's largest school district. 15,000, that's their number of employees. 5,600, the number of those employees who are classroom educators. So now, what happens to that large math when just one person gets COVID-19? The district's internal plans of how to handle that situation got out today. They say the plans aren't finalized, but it did give our Marshall Zellinger some insight into that complicated math problem.
The word problem is called quarantine scenarios, the subtraction of students, faculty, and staff if someone who attends school in person tests positive for COVID-19. DPS is preparing for 13 scenarios. Scenario 1, a student is infected with COVID-19. If that happens, all classmates of that student must quarantine and learn remotely for 14 days, along with any student or staff who took part in before or after school activities with the infected student, all teachers that the student has a class with, and anyone who is within 6 feet of the student for 10 minutes or longer for the previous 2 weeks. That's just scenario 1. What if a teacher tests positive? All students that the teacher teaches must learn remotely and quarantine for 14 days. And any adult within 6 feet of the teacher for 10 minutes or longer for the previous 2 weeks must quarantine. There's also a scenario for a student on a DPS bus who is infected. All other students who rode that bus in the previous 2 weeks will be asked to learn remotely and quarantine for 14 days, along with all students and teachers in classes with that infected student. The worst case scenario involves 4 or more students testing positive. That means the school gets shut down for a deep cleaning that takes no more than 3 days. After the deep cleaning, the school reopens, except we go back to the first scenario. A 2-week quarantine remains in place for the classmates of those infected students, the students and staff who took part in before or after school activities with the infected students, all teachers that the students have class with, and anyone who is within 6 feet of the students for 10 minutes or longer for the previous 2 weeks. So how will the district know if someone tests positive? Will the school be responsible for testing? No. A DPS spokeswoman tells me there'll be health screenings to help determine if the student or teacher should be in attendance, like a high temperature, but definitive positive, negative tests, Kyle, will not be part of the curriculum.
On another note, Marshall, I see that you removed the least humble brag of all time, which was all of your running medals, and replaced it with an enormous photo of Pepsi Center.
It's a nice photo of the Pepsi Center, and I'll show one day where I am in there. And I don't know, you've seen that movie where somebody comes to life in the picture? I can't remember what that movie's called, but that's me on the ice somewhere over there. I'll bring the medals back out. They were just off the camera over here. I'll bring you through the new studio one day.
Sounds good. Thanks, Marshall.
RTD celebrating an anniversary today means we need to get out the drawing board, like the literal drawing board. And a landmark on Denver's food scene is closing to make way for... Don't all yell luxury apartments at once. That's next.
Happy 20th anniversary to RTD's Southwest Rail Line. Can you believe that? It has been 20 years since RTD celebrated the opening of that line from South Denver to Littleton, which actually reminds me, our count up for RTD's Southwest train stands at 7,306 days. You didn't think I was going to take this happy occasion as an opportunity to shade RTD for its 30-year timeline to deliver on its promise to Longmont, did you? No, that would be unprofessional.
100 for 70s and rain in Denver in July. Our high today at 79. We get a break for one more day before the 90s return to the forecast. But tonight, it's the potential for severe storms south and east of Denver. Now, Denver has a shot at seeing some more heavy rain and maybe a little thunder and lightning, but it's down south that some of those storms could go late into the night, moving into Nebraska and Kansas and then really firing up. A mix of clouds and sunshine tomorrow, and then we do it all over again. Partly cloudy and 58 overnight. Temperatures back in the comfortable lower 80s tomorrow, and then we soar into the 90s. A dry weekend with thunderstorms back in the forecast early next week.
Another well-known restaurant goes down due to COVID-19.
It was like Cheers. You know, you walked in, you felt like Norm from Cheers. Everybody knew your name, and you knew a lot of people.
Ted Danson, turn off the lights. That's next.
Racines welcomed everybody to sit down at the table for a meal and conversation. You just had to deal with all the politicos and journalists lurking about. That restaurant that stood on Sherman Street for more than 30 years is closing for good.
Racines has always been seen as a very friendly place.
Racines, for a lot of reasons, was absolutely the go-to place. I'm Josh Hanfling. I'm a lobbyist here in Denver. I'm sitting in front of Racines restaurant. Myself, like many other lobbyists and other political folks, Racines was a very important part of our lives and almost a home away from home.
And it's where I started my day. I do consulting work, and it was just a really nice place to start the day.
I've been coming here since they opened.
I came here about 5 days a week. For me, the favorite memories are just running into people that I hadn't seen in a long time, might not have seen in a very long time.
I can think of very few occasions where I'd come in during the week and not see at least one elected official.
The staff knew me by name. As a matter of fact, the staff, when I walked in the door, usually put in my order.
I do remember one time walking in and seeing John Hickenlooper, I think it was post-governor, having breakfast with Tom Perez that had a Democratic Party, and they had a big binder on the table that made it pretty clear that this was not just a get-together. And that's when I thought, maybe John is thinking about running for president.
I think it will be a loss to the community, at least the community of people who saw this as their crossroads for meetings and good food and the like.
Certainly, we're all not out in public these days, but knowing that this was going to be here, at least for a little while when we got back, made me feel a lot better, and now it makes me feel a little sad now.
It was a good social junction here that I don't know there's a place that'll replace that, at least for me.
Making way for, you guessed it, apartments, high-rise. Have to crawl before you can hike. Actually, you do not, and the proof is the most Colorado thing we've seen. That and your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today, young Coloradan getting in on some of what makes this place great. Meet Lillian on her first Colorado hike at 8 months old among the Columbines at Cataract Lake near Silverthorne. Nice break from the news of the day. Send us your most Colorado thing next at 9news.com is the email. Our director Lawrence rightfully points out that Racines was on Bannock for a long time before it was over on Sherman Street. I should have mentioned 2 locations over its 30-plus year history. Christopher writes in and says that he likes the between the mask and the sunglasses sunburn on the cheeks. Some of that might have been beard. I don't know, because I don't wear a mask when I'm out in the garden. And Mary says, how can you keep a straight face and transition after joking about the polling place in Glendale? Because I'm a professional, Mary.